We're here and we made it. I have the amazing Jill Miller with me today, folks. And Jill, it's really good to have you with me. Thank you. And it's also really great to finally meet you.
Likewise, yes, we've been trying to talk for I think almost a year. We've
Yeah,
been
it's
trying
been
to.
a while, right? It's
Yes.
and you've got so much great stuff going on, and um, we've tried a few times. Well, now we score. We finally get together, and I've been looking forward to this because I was as we were talking off camera before we started recording. I started following you. I was just thinking, actually, it's probably more like 10 years ago because that's when I first met our mutual friend, our mutual brother, Dr. Perry Nicholson. And the first day I was with him, I was in northern Jersey at a place. Can't remember the name of the place, but Evan Chait owns it, and I love Evan. And Perry says, "You got to check out Jill Miller." So that
Oh,
was the beginning for me.
that's awesome. Thank you,
Yep.
Perry. Thank you for bringing
Yeah.
people
Thank you,
together.
Doc.
You are a
Appreciate it,
connector.
Doc. So just a little bit here. I'll read.
Sure.
Um, Jill Miller is a renowned fitness expert, yoga teacher, author, and very well known for her yoga tune-up method. Uh, as an author, we have a couple of great books she has written. The Role Model is fantastic, and I love The Role, ROLL model. Great book. And then your newest book, Body by Breath, which I'm particularly interested in talking about because I have a lot of questions about it and breath and relevance to breath in our movement, health, emotions, everything. And of course, do you mind telling us you're contributing author on a couple of other books, right? One is
Yeah.
about fascia.
Yes, so there's a book called Fascia Function and Medical Applications,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a contributing author on a chapter on self-myofascial release. And we literally, the contract just came in yesterday. We're going into second edition. So that's amazing that there's such a demand for it and that new science keeps emerging so that we can
Oh,
actually update all of our chapters, all the authors in this book, and provide a context for the medical community because many of them did not receive a lot of, if they receive fascia training at all during medical school, it's certainly not where the fascia research organization, Fascia Research Society, is today. So that's a really cool thing.
that's really good. That's something I'm looking forward to really digging into because that area to me seems like it's really expanding, and the knowledge that we're gaining, we being you, really, the experts. I'm just the guy who studies what you put out, right, and a few others. But that's a really interesting field. Um, well, do you mind? Can we just talk about? Can we dive right into the yoga tune-up real quick? Just talk about the formation of that and the
Mm-hmm.
overall, what it's about. Because I want to bring your work to my audience, and then I definitely want to dive into Body by Breath, very much so.
Yeah.
But yoga tune-up, Jill, tell us more about this.
Yeah. Well, Yoga Tuna came about out of a frustration that I was experiencing when I started to teach yoga. When I started to teach yoga, I had a lot of different tributaries of training that went into my life. I was been a mover since I was a tween and studied many different movement modalities. Yoga really stuck because I really liked the slow pace of it. And I was just a complete stress monger, anxiety filled kid. And this was the thing that just helped me rest myself in myself. And so when I became a yoga instructor and started to teach in classrooms, some of my massage training and some of my corrective exercise training started to speak out at me because I was watching people go through the motions of yoga asana and in particular vinyasa, because I was teaching in a vinyasa studio at the time. And vinyasa, if you're not familiar with it, vinyasa is these very elaborate choreographed string of movements, one to the next, with intermittent static stretching. If we just reduce it down to static poses in
Mm-hmm.
between. But what I saw in the classroom was that Many people were bypassing good joint mechanics when they were either in a pose or transitioning to poses. And because I had had other training in dance, movement, corrective exercise, and massage, I actually knew better how I could help them stimulate themselves in a way so that their body would be better suited for their version of the pose and that they weren't trying to aspire towards a 2D poster of the shape. So I started to stop my class and say, let's tune up the shoulders a little bit here so that you can actually feel the glenohumeral joint, so that you can actually feel the movements of the scapula, and then we can better position the shoulder for like something like chaturanga, like a push-up like position, or even just to be able to stabilize in a plank. And so I would take them through exercises, and then I started to bring balls into the room. And these balls were grippy, pliable balls that would serve as a massage stimulus. So I'd actually have them massage themselves, because I started to figure out, like, even just going through movements and showing them all these different joint articulations. And by the way, this is back in 2000, probably 2000, 1999, 2000, like 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, almost a quarter century ago. Oh my goodness. Wow. Right?
Time goes so fast, doesn't it? Yeah.
Time goes by really fast. So I would get people down on the ground. I'd have them massage their bodies. I'd be teaching them about anatomy while they're massaging themselves. And then we would pop back up and go through movements. Whether it was yoga asana or whether it was these little yoga tune-ups that I would create, these little joint exercises to help build proprioception. Because I found that one of the big missing pieces for people was body sense. And so I was just so determined to help my students locate themselves. It was more important for me that my students learned their bodies and mapped their bodies than it was for them to execute a nice shape. So, because that could then transfer their embodiment of their anatomy, could translate outside of the classroom as they walked down the stairs, as they went and shopped, as they picked up their children, as they drove in their cars, as they did other athletic endeavors or pedestrian endeavors or whatever. I just wanted to help my students embody their body. And so Yoga Tune-Up really ultimately became a format that I developed, and it was so disruptive and it was so unconventional, and I pissed off a lot of people in the traditional yoga space. I didn't have like thousands of students clamoring to come to my classes. In fact, I remember renting a martial arts studio in Santa Monica, and many times I was paying my students to be there. Like their tuition did not cover my rent, but I was on a mission. I was very young. I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I thought this was the right way to do things.
Yeah.
But luckily, I think some people noticed. Word of mouth spread. This was before Facebook. And I was able to build some notoriety, got photographed in Yoga Journal magazine for a novel exercise I taught called Nali Kriya, which was an abdominal, a gut thing that's featured in Body by Breath. And eventually people started saying, how can I teach Yoga Tune-Up? I want to learn how to do what it is you do. Around the same time, I met my husband, and a lot of people were encouraging me to expand what I was doing. And so I ultimately built a teacher training program, and now there are 8 different courses within that teacher training program underneath my company, Tune-Up Fitness Worldwide.
Right. Now, those are on the website, right? You can access. Yeah, because the website's really nicely put together, and see courses on there. I think that, sometimes like the story you're telling there about paying your students essentially to be there is sometimes, that's part of the investment, I guess. And if you stand by what it is you feel is you're doing is benefiting people, it's the right or best thing that you know of to do, then we pay for that up front. And then hopefully if it catches on, we can help people, and then we do okay too, maybe, right?
Yeah, well, I was waitressing all the other days of the week to pay rent. So it's not that this was my side hustle. I knew I was onto something,
Hmm.
and I think somebody told me a long time ago, money follows virtue. And so I just kept digging into the education. I just kept
Yeah.
digging into the why. And I was relentless with trying to be a student of my students and help them with their aches, pains, challenges, and help students that conventional yoga was ignoring or overlooking. So I think there was a huge opportunity. There still is a huge opportunity for adapting yoga for so many different bodies.
Hmm.
And now, I mean, honestly, we're in 2023. The deconstruction of yoga and bringing functional movement into yoga is full on. It's just like it's totally out there. But I would like to think I was one of the first pioneers around in that time in that era.
Well, there's no doubt you're a pioneer, and I know what you mean. It is full on. By the way, I've taken some notes because you're already giving me these things to think about just in my own work here with the people I work with. The terms I've read that you've said, or I've watched videos of you, like map your body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's you can't put enough high level of importance on that. Self awareness, awareness of body, where things are, what's happening, and being a student of your student. I love that too because when I teach anywhere I've gone around the world and teach, sometimes I even say it to them. I say, I guarantee when we walk out tomorrow night, I learn more than any of you because there's one of me and there's all of you, and you all have unique
Mm-hmm.
backgrounds. But I teach a concept, and then bingo, holy cow! I walk out, feel like I
Isn't
win
it
in the
amazing? I mean,
the
that's the thing. Like
information
that is
lottery. Yeah,
information lottery. Yeah, that is the gift that we get as teachers is
yeah,
we're really trying, I'm always trying to meet my students at their learning edge. And it's it's a novel challenge every time. I mean, I might show up with some ideas and some themes, and even a sequence. And as soon as I try out my first four cues on my people, their bodies and their processing of what I'm conveying to them starts to dictate the flow of the process that we go into together. And it is a process. I'm not a results oriented teacher. I'm a process oriented teacher. And so the entire ethos around the pedagogy I have is about process based learning, so that I can stay fresh and it needs to be dynamic.
man, you have so many golden nuggets. We're only 13 minutes into this. No, seriously, things like this just makes me think of a whole bunch of things. Meeting a student at their learning edge. I mean that's brilliant. I mean, for me, that's going to
Mm,
make me think. I'm going to have to
good.
ponder that and how I can address that process versus outcome. Or no, you said how did you put that?
Result, well, yeah,
Proce-
same thing. Outcome,
process
results. I mean,
based.
that definitely would, I mean, piss a lot of people off. And there's a time and a place for results oriented training, but that's not what this pit stop is. That's not what tune up is.
Yeah,
Um,
because this is a
or role
continual
model or what.
process. It's not like you go in and an hour later you're out and it's all done forever. And
No,
you pick up where you left
can't be.
off, or you have a bad day and you regress a little, or whatever. Kind of like life is. It can be.
Yes.
And the other thing I find interesting about teaching, no matter where or what, even if it's one on one, is that ADD gets the best of me sometimes, and I have no idea what I was just about to say, but it will come back. Okay, so every workshop is different. Every teaching
Hmm.
experience is different. If it's the same person one on one, two different, three different, four different sessions, it's different, and I love that because that flow you talk about, it's like a workshop molds itself
Hmm.
and then falls
Hmm.
under whatever concepts you're teaching. Um, but it just finds its own way. I just love it. So thank you for sharing about yoga tune-up, and I've wanted to hear more about that from you, and we just did. Want to encourage people to go and check out the website too. if you don't mind sharing that with us. And I want to go into your books, especially the newest
Sure.
one.
Well, the website is my company name, which is
Oh, I'm so
tuneupfitness.com.
sorry.
Yeah, so Tune Up Fitness is my company,
Got
and
it.
then within the company, I've developed a number of formats, and the most well known are Yoga Tune Up, and the other is the role model method,
Got it.
and then Body by Breath is now this third.
So tell us about this book, how it came about, and just talk about it with us because I love what you have done here.
Thank you. Well, breath is a shaping force within your body for so many different systems. If you think about it from a musculoskeletal perspective, your breathing is a force producer for posture. Your breath is a force producer to help with digestion, elimination, both below the belt and above the throat, right? We eliminate through coughing, sneezing, exhaling. We also eliminate our digestion and our urination, and we move our babies out. So our breathing muscles are a very powerful aspect of shaping our body and shaping our moment to moment experience. The breathing muscles also are a big contributor to posture. So we can look at breath from a musculoskeletal standpoint, and I do that within the book, but breathing is also this incredible, agile tool that the body uses, obviously, to maintain its life. But we can adjust our breath's pace anytime we want in order to adjust our emotional state, our state regulation. So those are very, very powerful impact on all the things I mentioned before. Just changing your breathing and adjusting your state might be the thing that could help to slow down digestion if you happen to be a very, very rapid expeller, right? If you tend to have frequent diarrhea, or
Right.
if you're a very, very slow processor of food, changing breathing habits might be the thing that helps to mobilize your intestines to move things along. So there can be these emotional results of using breathing for this reason or for that reason, but also we can adjust our breathing to affect very specific systems within our body, which is amazing to have this turnkey thing that can be done by anybody, any time of day, any position, anywhere.
Absolutely. It is amazing. I never appreciated it, and I probably still don't fully appreciate it. But I didn't really appreciate any of it until, well, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago when I started to have breathing issues. So
Mm-hmm.
just real quick, I have spent my first career was a musician, a drummer for a living. So I started very young. I was 14, and I was professional, getting paid, and all this stuff, and traveling and working with some really great musicians. But for the about 30 years of that, even after they banned smoking in public places in New York State, I'd still be traveling to places that didn't ban smoking. So I was never a smoker other than one pack of cigarettes in high school because I thought it would be cool, and I almost threw up every time and said, this is disgusting and dirty. I was never a smoker. Well, 30 plus
Mm.
years later, I'm diagnosed with COPD. Actually, 12 years ago, I was not officially diagnosed when my doctor said you probably have it early stage. So now I'm full in,
Mm.
even as recent as a year ago. But what's interesting, though, and I don't want to take away from, I think I want to get back to your book here, but I'd love for you to share for anyone out there who's had any kind of breathing issues, whether it's COPD from, firsthand smoke, secondhand smoke, both, or maybe now because of the exercises I've been doing that have helped my posture,
Mm-hmm.
my cerebral, my brain, and my I'm downgraded to asthma. So the upper lobe scarring, it hasn't gone away, but the rest of the lung has gotten better. And I feel
Amazing.
better, and I have more energy, and I think better, and I'm more life in me. But that was then when I started doing this, I'm starting to realize, wait a minute, okay, posture is like there's a relationship here. Of course, we do VO2 resting tests here and VO2 submax and max testing. And one of the assessments they give is breathing and cognition, breathing and posture. There's actually a relevance to both.
Mm-hmm.
So I've now that I just divulged that information, I'm just curious to hear any of your thoughts about all
Yes.
those things intertwined in those relationships of respiratory problems, health, movement, cognition, you name it, vitality.
Yes, Carl, first of all, I'm so moved that you shared that with me, and how unfortunate and how unconscious society was to the perils of smoke, especially secondhand smoke. I'm a child of smokers, grew up in houses where everybody smoked, being in the back seats of cars with smokers. These are extremely core memories in my
Yes.
body. But I also grew up in a home where I had a smoker mom who was also severely asthmatic. And one of
Okay.
the main drivers of the entire book was, I would wake up. I remember being woken by ambulance sirens
Sure.
taking my mom to the hospital when I was a young child. And I learned very early that without breath, you die. Now, my mother is fine. I mean, fine is subjective. My mother still has a chronic asthma and a lot of complications that come along with that. We'll get into that. But I also had two grandmothers die from COPD related illness. So the fact that you had this diagnosis and that you have managed to downgrade what would seem like a terminal illness and walk it back through your own protocols is something everybody needs to hear. I need to hear, and I'm just really heartened by that. So there are a number of protocols and explanations in Body by Breath that address your body, your type, your body. The people that do have challenges with in and out breathing, expansion of breathing, and may have scarring throughout their lungs. So one of the things that came out about the pandemic was this, first of all, the virus went after endothelium. And so you just never know which lining of which vasculature the virus will decide in your body to go after. I mean, some people had kidney disease, other people had lung disease, other people had different brain-related challenges. But the lungs, because it was an upper respiratory bug, the lungs tend to be a really unfortunate bed for disease and long-term disease. So long COVID is one of the top two diseases that are being watched worldwide. That, along with anxiety and depression related diseases, are two of the fastest growing disease categories on the planet. And my book unconsciously was able to, it tackles all of this. It's not what I set out to do, because I started writing this book 8 years ago. It's what I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to share my approach to core-based work, which happened to be through breathing and through the guts, manipulating these tissues with the variety of role model balls that I share. All right, so I just front-loaded a lot to say one of the big exercise protocols that I share out in the book are manipulations of one's own breathing tissues. So when you've got asthma or COPD, that they might say, oh, here are the exercise categories that you can do. Here are the drug protocols that you can do. Obviously, here are the dietary things to minimize flare-ups and so on. But one of the things that's missing for a lot of people is the massage of the lung tissue and the massage of the muscles of all three zones within your axis that govern respiration. There's a lot to unpack. So, your lungs, especially if you have scarring, it's very, very helpful to expectorate the sputum, right? The stuck fluid, the stuck mucus.
Yeah.
And one doesn't
Lots of
even
that.
know how much fluid is just stuck and unable to be mobilized up and out. And you can get that by using mucus thinning medications. They have their own side effects. But one of the things that I have found with my clients is the manipulation of the ribs and the lungs using the Corgis ball. I'm looking around. Thought I had rolled one over here by my seat. Hang on, let me go grab it.
Yeah, this is really, I'm with you 100% on this, especially just thinking about this massage of lung tissue, massage of muscles, and
Okay.
how relevant all that is. Oh, okay, yeah, great,
Yeah.
great.
Honestly, oops. This is one of the things that drew Doc Perry to my work is I was having people lay on, I'm holding up, if you're listening to this, a soft inflatable air-filled ball. It's a little bit kind of like the size of, smaller than my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a very tender touch to it. And you can always deflate it if you need it even more tender. But when you lay upon it, it provides biofeedback about where you are and aren't breathing. It also provides biofeedback about the tension in the different zones within your trunk where the muscles of respiration live. Now, if we have a lot of rigidity in any of the zones, and I've got 3 zones, I can break them down for you, but basically it's stuff below the rib cage, it's the stuff within the rib cage, and then it's the stuff of the shoulders, neck, and head.
Yeah.
That break down neurologically also in terms of our stress response. But when we rest upon the ball, do some different breathing strategies, and then move a little bit, move gently and fluidly with the ball, it helps to not only massage the tissues that govern respiration, that might help my ribs to open and close better, but it also helps the lungs themselves to be squeezed and wrung and to slide within the rib cage. And that helps to express fluids that are stuck all the way at the bottom of the chain, in the alveoli sacs that just are these dead zones, right, for fluid.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to all this, we are manipulating our dominating breathing muscle, that is the respiratory diaphragm. The respiratory diaphragm is frequently a completely off the grid muscle in terms of our body awareness. And that is because this dome shaped muscle that lives inside your rib cage that makes you breathe about 22,000 times a day, it has no proprioceptors in it that tell you about where it is in your body. So for example, right now, if I say to you, Carl, can you tell me, like, is your elbow straight or is it bent? And can you feel the tone in your biceps without touching it? Can you get a sense of your biceps? And can you get a sense of the bend in your elbow?
Sure. Yeah.
And your mind can go there and
Right,
it
I
can
can
sense
go
that.
there.
But if I
I'm
said,
feeling.
yeah, I mean, anybody can. And if I said, okay, now tell me where your diaphragm is in, like, where exactly is it in your breath cycle right now?
Nope.
You
I mean,
cannot.
I can think about it and maybe try to create some diaphragmatic breathing, but it's a different. That's totally
Right. Well,
different
you
than an
can feel your
elbow.
guts expand.
Yeah.
You can feel your waist or low back expand. Maybe you can feel your ribs expand, but you can't actually feel the diaphragm the way you can feel your biceps. And that's
Yeah.
because we don't have these sensors in our diaphragm that play out in our sensory motor cortex. Obviously, your brain knows where your diaphragm is, but
Sure.
it's almost impossible to become conscious of it unless you have the hiccups. And sometimes when we have the hiccups, we get a really good sense of it.
Sure. Good point.
And
I
that's
never
just
thought about
a
that.
spasm of the diaphragm, by the way.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
so one of the big themes of Body by Breath, I use 4 tools to help you build what I call the science and practice of physical and emotional resilience. And the 4 tools are breathe, roll, move, and non-sleep deep rest or yoga nidra. And so for my friends who are dealing with, serious afflictions to their breathing, it's really important to not just concentrate on this nose to lungs experience of breathing, but to actually manipulate the tissues and then feel the vast impact that breathing has all over the body. And that's really, it's laid out for you in the book, both in the scientific chapters and then in the practical chapters.
I love it. One of the things I'm thinking about, you mentioned a word that rings a bell with me because the work I do here, a lot of work I do here, it has rigidity was the word. And I work, if you will, and I don't mean this in a strange way, if there's anything I'm known for in the movement world, it would be working with people with movement disorders, particularly Parkinson's. That's
Mm-hmm.
the avenue research-wise and every otherwise that I've gone down for a long, long time. Well, what's really interesting is, this lack of dopamine production in the brain, particularly, can cause so many problems. But there's dopamine in other areas of the body, the liver and the respiratory parameters. So when you add on the fact that if you take dopamine out of or diminish the respiratory dopamine presence, if you will, and you have rigidity as a part of Parkinson's, let's say, and your chest is tight, and your posture is bent over, because a lot of these things kind of go along with, well, life in general, and as we age a lot of times too, but Parkinson's is a especially unique thing, and Parkinsonisms and any kind of dopamine deficient, MSA, a couple others too, but we have trouble getting people to be able to take a deep breath because they're so rigid that their, sternocostal, their costal, everything is so rigid.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to expand those can be a real challenge, to be able to allow for a deep breath. And so that ball, Tune Up Fitness, can you buy them there?
Of course.
You have tools on there, yeah. Yeah, I knew you
yeah,
could.
there's
I
a
just want to
whole,
make...
yeah, there's a
Yeah,
whole fleet of role model balls,
yeah.
different sizes and different tensions of rubber. I'm holding up a small ball. This is called the yoga
Oh,
tune-up ball,
yeah,
and
yeah.
all of our balls are made with grippy, pliable rubber. There's three
Hmm.
different sizes of the solid rubber balls, and then there's the air-filled gorgeous ball. And these are
Nice.
really great for, in terms of a neurological relay, but also in terms of improving fascial stretch and fascial
Sure.
glide, improving the production of hyaluronan. That's the grease or the slick fluid that helps your tissues to be able to move upon one another. One of the challenges with rigidity is the abundant stickiness that can happen when hyaluronan binds to itself instead of water. And so we need to do things to these stiff tissues, specifically with some friction and shear, using tools like the role model balls, which you can do yourself. It's a lot less, it's a lot more financially. Um, uh, it's a lot
Excuse me.
easier to do it yourself than to have to call a massage therapist every time you're feeling
Absolutely, yeah.
incredibly stiff. So
Hmm.
this gives you, that's why the book's called The Role Model, my first book. It gives you that autonomy of self-care and self-massage treatment whenever and wherever you need it. But I agree. I think many people don't realize that these muscles of respiration, I mean, they control everything. So they're also controlling your perceptions, your mood, your state, like I said earlier. And if you can adjust their unconscious bracing, there can be a tremendous cascade that benefits all systems of your body and also will motivate you to move more and to stay moving.
It's really interesting because it's so funny because the more complex I see something, sometimes it just brings everything around to the more simple it actually is. Like an example would be how, let's see, we've done a few like little pilot data studies here for various companies, and one of the things we notice in particular is if somebody comes in with any type of cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive impairment, if you will, once we do even as little as 3 minutes of an elevated heart rate, so cardio, if you will, at a rate that
Mm-hmm.
they're comfortable with, it's not a maxing out high interval thing. It's just putting out the effort, though, getting the heart rate up. We've done pre and post cognition tests,
Hmm.
and 100% of the time, their cognition improves. So why would that be? I mean, well, there are probably a lot of factors. They have blood and oxygen being delivered to the brain through oxygen through blood, oxygen through breath, because they're elevating their heart rate, so their muscles need more oxygen, so they're drawing in more frequent breaths and hopefully a little deeper breath. It is, to me, what's amazing is how breath can actually, I've seen this countless times, I'm sure you have too, can improve cognition. It can improve how you feel. I mean, we look at the limbic system, we look at our emotions, we look at our cognition, we look at our energy levels, look at our lack of energy levels. Once we get moving, once we get breathing, it seems to be like everything gets better. All things
Yes.
get better. Isn't it wild?
One
Who
of the
knew?
researchers that I feature in Body by Breath, there's I think the breathing brain. There's a chapter on the breathing brain. This is not my area of specialty, but I certainly pay attention when anything is breath related. There's a neuroscientist that specializes in respiration or the neural aspects of respiration. His name is Dr. Jack Feldman,
I've
and
heard of. I know
I
Jack. I don't know Jack. I know Jack though. Oh,
yeah,
he's the
of
man.
course he is the man, and yeah, I gave him a copy of my book as soon as I got them in from the publisher. We had lunch.
Sure.
I had interviewed him for the book and had the honor of actually teaching at a retreat with him and Dr. Andrew Huberman
Oh
during the
my
pandemic.
gosh. Because that's where
I
I
know
heard
it was,
about him is on Huberman's podcast.
that's right.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
love Andrew
So
so much.
I had some of his studies in the drafts of my book prior to meeting him, and I could never have imagined this character. He's so fun. But anyway, he's the man or the person or the scientist who discovered the neural origins of respiration. He is the scientist who discovered a certain zone of the brainstem called the pre-Botzinger complex where inhales originate. And then he also discovered a region of the brainstem called the parafacial nucleus where exhales originate. But one of the things I learned from him that I didn't know, I've learned so many things from him that I didn't know, is that breathing, these movements of the respiratory signal aren't just flowing down the phrenic nerve to tell the diaphragm to contract, which creates your inhalation, by the way. But these signals are also pinging around into different brain centers, but they're also creating its own rhythmic oscillation throughout the entire brain. So every few seconds, when you have a breath occur, you have these wave forms penetrating through the entire structure inside your skull.
Wow.
And it's not clear what these oscillations do for the whole of the brain, but he thinks that they are a unifying network to, provide some type of necessary connection between multiple brain centers. And so breathing rhythmically, whether it's happening because it's happening or whether we decide to alter the way we're breathing, has a profound effect on all brain centers or all brain regions, not centers,
Yeah.
all brain parts. And so much more needs to be uncovered and discovered about that. But, I just walk, when I'm walking my dog, if I'm not telling Instagram about, oh, here's the dog walk talk today, when I'm walking and I'm not dealing with media, I really love to meditate on that, on what are these brain waves doing? What are these breathing waves doing for my brain? And just meditate on it, partner with that, and
Yeah, I
kind
love
of chew
that.
on that. I love being taken care of by the ocean of my breath, right? The ocean always has waves
There's
for the earth.
another
And
gem right there.
our breathing always has some type of effect on our brain as a whole, and not just on the stuff below, which I've always been obsessed with. I mean, I've been obsessed with the diaphragm, like I said, since I was a young girl.
Interesting because I was just thinking of a million things here, but one of them in particular is when I went to school for music way, way,
Mm.
way back 40 something years ago. Um, Fortunately and unfortunately, we had to take singing classes. So that's not something I enjoy doing, but you're taught to use your diaphragm. You've got to push oxygen air through the larynx, through the vocal cords to produce sound, to project and increase your volume. And well, we learned how to do that. So that was my first experience ever knowing about the diaphragms in relation to breathing. So, of course, I didn't sing in any of the bands I was ever in, and I probably won't be singing anytime soon. But at the same time, that was I keep that in mind for some of the work I do. But the way you're talking about this, though, I like, I guess for lack of better description or words, you're taking control of this breathing thing. You're doing mindful breathing. I mean, that sounds really
Hmm.
cliche,
No.
but you can intentionally change your breathing, which means you can intentionally change your state, like you said,
Hmm.
in so many different ways. It's just, to me, so
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm so fascinated by this. This is
Well,
like
I
my
can
new thing.
rewind a bit
I'm have
to.
addictive tendencies. So right now, for a few years now, I'll be addicted to breath.
Great. Well, I hope you can get to one of the seminars so that you can really
Please, I
embody
want
this
to.
body by breath process.
Hmm.
Because while it's available in the book and there's lots of QR codes to help take you to videos, there's always nothing like uh, learning it in the
Yeah.
classroom setting. So I'm a singer,
Oh, great.
and the original time I learned about the diaphragm, my very first time learning about the actual diaphragm, was in a voice lesson, just like yourself. And that was, yeah, I can see myself standing in my music teacher's space with her explaining the diaphragm. I don't know if it was an accurate explanation. I've certainly learned a lot by researching the diaphragm in the last 8 years, but it certainly stuck with me and became very important. But yeah, singing was my first love long before yoga was, and I wanted to be a singer as a kid. And when I got into college, I was in theater arts and performing arts in theater in the theater school at Northwestern University, just outside of Chicago.
I used to
And
live in Evanston.
no,
Hmm. Yeah.
dude, we probably know each other. I used to work at
I
the
went
Lucky
there to go to
Platter.
school because I auditioned, got accepted, and then I never actually. I moved to it. I lived on Ridge Road. You know where that is if you were in
Yes.
Evanston. And I never went to school. I spent two
You
years
did you get into
gigging.
the music department?
I got accepted into music program, yeah, but I never went. I decided to do gigs. So I was in the Loop and Lincoln Park all the time, every night.
Unbelievable. That is
This is way before. I'm a lot older than you. I moved there in 80, early 82, came back in 84 to where Syracuse, New York. But yeah, great place.
well,
Love it. And I'm so sorry. So,
I started there in 1989. We're not that different in age.
okay.
We're not
Well,
that far apart.
so did you go to Northwestern?
Yes, so I went to
Oh
Northwestern,
man, God bless you.
and but when I was at Northwestern, my first 2 years, I was bulimic. I was dealing with an eating disorder that had started in my teens,
Hmm.
and that's part of the origin story of the book as well, and why visceral massage, organ massage, is a huge feature in the book. The book is not about how to heal an eating disorder, but it just so happens that I had to go through my body using tools to become conscious of my body and to connect with my feelings. But the reason I'm telling you this about Northwestern and about singing is I ended up not pursuing music any further. When I got to school, it was really clear that I did not have the strength of my voice of a voice or a developed voice or ability to develop the voice the way I saw some of my classmates.
Hmm.
And I know now that the reason why I was unable to do it was one, what I was dealing with emotionally, but two,
Sure.
what it was doing to me structurally. So there's no way you can binge and purge and throw up and have a voice that is healthy.
Hmm.
And so even though I was taking voice lessons, as part of what I did there, I stopped that part, and I kept acting and I kept dancing.
Hmm.
And then I went back to voice during the writing of the book. It was during the
Wow.
pandemic, because I would consult with singers all the time and teach
No
singers and
kidding.
say, "Oh, this
Oh
is
my
very helpful for
gosh.
singing." But I actually wasn't singing and figuring it out for myself. I just knew that it worked because I had seen success with a lot of opera people using my work, and Broadway people, or rock people. And so I actually started to sing with my kids' music instructor, Chad Wolf, who has a band Carolina Lyre, great rock band from the early 2000s, or yeah,
Hmm.
late 2000, I don't know, 2000 something. And he has just been my muse and helped me eradicate all my bad habits in my voice. And now that I'm so in my body also, and my knowledge of anatomy, the experience of singing is a completely different, iridescent, psychedelic, and that anatomically informed escapade in my body whenever I sing. And it's because of I mean, obviously the health of my body, but knowing what I know about using breath and about integrating all these body parts. So I love your story, and I know a lot of people don't enjoy singing, or they like singing, but they don't want to be in front of the microphone. But for me, it has become one of the most regulating practices that I do, and it's all built on breath mechanics.
I feel like not to hijack into a different area, but just for one moment, we're talking about some life events here and experiences that are, I think, really important. For me, I feel like, oh boy, don't hold me to it. Anybody who ever watches or hears this, that singing is something I probably should do.
Mm.
No, you didn't hear that. Because it gets me. It's a fear. I can public speak in front of anybody, anywhere, anytime. I never get nervous. It doesn't matter who it is, who the audience is, or how many people. Singing, forget about it. As they
Mm.
say, this is an inside joke. Forget about it. So, anyways,
Forget
no, it's not
about
going to happen. But I think that'd be a really good thing for me to probably do. I've actually thought about calling up the main guy here, who I used to be a drummer for a long time. He's like the greatest vocalist in
it. Mm.
jazz and contemporary jazz and blues and R&B, and say, Ronnie, it's time.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it sounds great. I
I
mean,
don't
for
know,
me,
man.
it's like that is my sole practice. I mean, I do lots of stuff, but it
I
it
mean, this
is
is the Sennheiser 900 something Stevie Nicks mic. I could use this microphone.
could
This is
see
a
it's a
super high end
beautiful.
mic. I mean, this is literally what she uses.
Oh,
So instead, I just talk right now.
lucky you.
Well, it's yeah. I wanted to go back to something here.
Sure.
Um, okay, so we're talking about. I think so. First of all, the books are available on your website. Okay, so
The
we go
books
to.
are available through Amazon. I'm not a bookseller. I mean, we do sell the role model book, but Body by Breath is so heavy. It's a 480-page hardback. So
Yeah.
You get Amazon for Body by Breath, and while you're at it, pick up a copy of the role model.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
that's the best place to buy books
Okay.
in
That I
terms
wanted
of
to ask you if there was a best place, because some it varies with different people, and how it's all set up. But okay, so I saw them on Amazon too. I saw both
yes,
of them there. Can you just talk a little bit about the role model? Because
yes.
that's I just love that. I think it's one of the greatest books out there.
Oh, thank you. I want to just finish one thing about the voice. So,
Yes.
originally with Body by Breath, there were another 350 pages to this book that we had to eliminate a year before
Oh,
publishing.
oh my gosh.
And many of those pages were testimonials, stories from people who have included this work in their lives and their stories of healing and transformation. And one of those stories was a voice teacher at USC who has a partially paralyzed vocal cord. And
Oh,
she would bring me in to do sessions with her vocalists, and the instrument department would bring me in to do role model sessions with the instrument department. But the vocalists really do well with the body by breath work because it very much helps to relax their body and
I'm
then
sure.
upregulate the respiratory mechanics and so on. And so the vocal warm up, they'll kind of like check in. We do like test retest, and so she does a vocal warm up with them, and then I lead them through this hour session, and then they recheck, and the sound that they're able to make after a session is just bone shatteringly vibratory and unbelievable. Wow. So I did the session with them, and then a few hours later, she went and she taught. She's teaching all day, and like 3 or 4 hours later, she taught an opera class, and she demonstrated something, and she was like, "Where did that sound come from?" Her vocal cord paralysis had disappeared. There was something that got upregulated, some little neural relay via the laryngeal nerve, or probably laryngeal nerve, because we do a lot of exercise that targets different portals, mechanical portals of the vagus nerve, which shares source nuclei with the laryngeal nerve. So that's my guess of what might happen.
Just going to ask you about that, but keep going.
Yeah, that was my guess about what might have happened. But she was stunned that she had this temporary unparalysis, and of course, I don't know how many days later it went back to its normal or its habitual function. Mm-hmm. But it's just so great knowing that she can do this if she wants to. Employ a more full vocal sound, and that's something that no doctor can do for her. But that she, just by doing rolling in the particular sequence that we did, one of the rolls or all the rolls ignited this for her. So the role model method. Did you have another question about that before I go to the role model?
Okay, yes. Thank you. Thanks for stopping there, because yes, I do. So, and I wasn't going to ask it originally, but you just prompted me to think of this. So, about a month ago, 5-6 weeks ago, I had a paralyzed right side vocal cord. Well, they discovered it in very, very late May. Scoped me, went down. It's not moving. So then when I went to the specialist, the guy in town here, he scoped me too, and it was moving. So he did talk about this Loreto Vegas connection somehow, and I'm not familiar with these in relation to vocal cords. I'm not familiar with the pathways or innervations, but are you able to share a little bit about that? Because
go to chapter 3 of my book and just read the entire chapter on the vagus nerve.
Buy the book,
and you'll see schema. You'll see it in there.
Beautiful. Okay.
Like you'll see it. Okay. It'll answer your questions, and also practice. There's even the book. I have a practice called the vocal vagus, and there's even a QR code that'll take you on to YouTube videos. But you do need to do the manipulations with the balls on these different portals of activation or of massage to be able to stimulate, and it's amazing. It's amazing how it works. So. Yeah. Thank you to your ENT for giving you that clue, and then the book gives you practices to do.
Yeah, and with all respect to this specialist who is so great, I'm not sure that he or anyone in town or maybe anywhere really knows what you're teaching in chapter 3, because nobody talks about it. It's just like they don't talk about a lot of things in the medical world that actually help.
No,
right?
No, I'm holding up the book. And then chapter, I don't have it paged out, but where's my chapter 3? Oh, look at this.
Great graphics,
look at all these
too.
pictures of the vagus nerve and
great, beautiful graphics.
So many different. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, one of the great blessings of my community is so many people who follow my work are clinicians. Physical therapists, occupational therapists, chiros, osteopaths, a few MDs. I mean, I know there's a few MDs out there who follow my work, but certainly a fewer and far between than the aforementioned professions. My dad's a doctor. I mean, that's part of why I try to speak in clinical language, as well as be able to bebop into magazine language and sports and athletics language, just try to be able to communicate to so many different populations. So the role model book is the subtitle is A Step-by-Step Guide to Erase Pain, Improve Mobility, and Live Better in Your Body. And in the role model, I outline the new science of fascia and how you can learn how to map yourself using the different fleet of soft self-myofascial release tools that I have, or use your own soft self-myofascial release tools. And there's a lot of why. So I go through the science of self-myofascial release. I go through the science of fascia. There's a lot of case reports in that book about people who have used role model for their health and well-being. And then there are 17 sequences that cover the entire body.
Oh, beautiful.
You know, from feet to face and everything in between. And then the Body by Breath book really looks more at the impact of it's less about proprioception and knowing where your body is in space and mapping, but it's more about interoception and being able to recognize your subtle sensing, the ability to listen to yourself physiologically, and that's its impact on being able to adjust your stress switch, turn on your off switch is what I say, and deepen into parasympathetic nervous system dominance as a regular practice to help you build resilience. So this isn't like build resilience by like going harder, gritting your teeth together, but this might help you if you do grind your teeth together, will help you to relax the muscles of the face, neck, and head that are actually in the way of having a good rhythm of breathing that can calm you down and less being all turned up all the time.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'm going off for just 1 second, but I was at the URSA conference in San Diego this year, and I met a gentleman named Tony. I don't know his last name, but he was at the Power Plate booth with Lee Hillman, who is the owner of the company, who is a friend. Anyways, that's beside the point. But I get there, and Tony's talking to me about this, the shape of your face in relation to a history of, let's say, long-term grinding of teeth. Or the asymmetries in the face that can be related to breathing. I mean, he went into this stuff. I never even knew about this stuff. And then I even got more into the whole breathing idea just because I don't want to have like an asymmetrical face.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's
I'm
that.
not so vain that I care that much about how I look. I don't want to like a unkept. But I don't want to be, all tilted in 20 years or something.
Yeah, well, the temporomandibular joint.
He's got anxiety. He's bad off. What's wrong with that guy? But
yeah, I mean, you use your temporomandibular joint. Every phrase that you utter, every chew that you chew, every yawn that you make, and it's used thousands of times a day. And it's innervated by the facial nerve and the trigeminal nerve involved there in different ways as well. And so our structure, of course, we are a reflection of how we use our body, and how we do our body most is how our body does. So
it's like we take the shape of our environment, right? Or how we move or act or
both from
ourselves.
Inside and outside, for sure.
Yeah.
Listen,
yeah.
I gotta jam because I gotta get to
Yes,
teaching.
We've been on for a while.
Yes.
Listen, so first of all, thank you. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much, Jill. I so much appreciate you coming on, and I know it took us many, many months, maybe a year or so, but we're here. We did it. For those who are watching and listening, thank you. Thank you. Go to Tune Up Fitness. Check out everything that Jill has. Go to a workshop. I've got to look and see where they are and try to get to one too. I want to do the breath one if you're doing those, if you have live ones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where this is coming out. My next Body by Breath immersion is in Canada. It's at a retreat center north of Kingston on this beautiful UNESCO preserve at this place
it's like
called
2 hours from me.
What? Oh,
3
it's
hours.
Bloom Holistic Retreat Center. And there are, I think, 3 rooms left. This place is unbelievable.
Oh, okay. And which, is this the breath one?
Yes, this is the body by breath immersion.
Kingston is 2 hours. That's it.
Yeah, no, and it's literally 24 minutes from Kingston.
Oh my gosh, that's so close.
That's crazy. Small world. Wow.
It is a small world. So
and then I'm teaching.
Right?
What's that?
We're going to Canada.
Oh,
so,
yeah, right.
I don't want to offend anybody. I love Canada, and I love it up there too. And near Kingston's just gorgeous. So, Tune Up Fitness. Also, go to Amazon. Buy the books, Body by Breath, which that title just says it all. right?
Thank you.
And the role model. And again, thank you so much. Let's stay in touch. We'll meet at some point in person, hopefully soon. Keep
Yeah,
doing the great work you do
hopefully in
too.
August. But I'll also be in Chicago to teach Body by Breath Masterclass October 7th. I'm going back to
Ah,
Northwestern for my 30th reunion, and I'm
oh,
going to
really?
teach. I'm going to teach at this place called Yoga View in Wilmette, and then Los Angeles, November 2nd to 9th, I'll be teaching yoga tune-up teacher training.
Remember
But
riding my
people can
bicycle
study
up
with
Lakeshore
me.
Drive, Wilmette,
That's it.
Winnetka.
But people
Oh,
can
man.
always study with me online. I have lots of
Okay.
I have an online classroom there, the Move Breathe Roll classroom. And then if they want to learn more about fascia, probably the best place to do it is through a program I did with Tom Myers called Rolling Along the Anatomy Trains. That's available through my website. Also with Kelly Starrett, I did a program called Treat While You Train,
Oh,
and then a
two
program on
geniuses.
walking with Katie
You and
Bowman
them,
called
three
Walking Well.
geniuses. I never met Kelly. I love Tom. He's so funny too.
Oh yes.
He's fun.
So yeah, Katie Bowman and I did a program called Walking Well that's very helpful for people
Beautiful.
who are trying to gauge that. And then recently I did a HIT program with my friend Doc Jen Fraboni called Roll into HIT. So there's lots of offerings,
Oh, man.
ways to connect.
Unbelievable. And thanks again. So keep up the great work, Jill. Thank you again. You and I be in touch. Everybody,
Thanks, Carl.
go buy her books and go to her courses.
Yay.
TuneUpFitness.com.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. We'll be in touch soon, my friend.